I usually struggle with the constant battle of procrastination, where I would tend to cast off different tasks like homework, chores, summer reading, even recording podcast episode at times. But I've come to learn that later sometimes becomes never. Let me tell you, that's way easier said than done to try and stop the procrastination cycle because it's not that simple to break. But in this episode, we'll be breaking down all the reasons why we procrastinate, and FYI, it has nothing to do with being lazy. Debunk certain theories and provide better techniques to handle procrastination. Now, all this information is coming from my own experiences where I've struggled with procrastination deeply and how I overcame that cycle. And some of the information is coming from professional studies that explain why humans wait until the very last minute to get things done. So let's get into it and let's stop procrastination once and for all. Hi everyone, I'm Savanna and this is Mental Mondays with Savanna, a motivating, mental cleansing, and energy boosting podcast. I focus on how one can improve their mental health while helping you build a better mindset, better habits, and a better life for yourself. I'm a 15-year-old CEO, a passionate storyteller, and an optimistic dreamer who views the world through a different set of lenses. I came on here to share that unique view with you. My biggest hope is that my videos ignite a spark in you to seek your highest potential and so that you can live a life without limits. Let's dive into it. Welcome back to Mental Mondays with Savanna. This week we are on episode 14 and we will be talking about an issue many people, especially me, face throughout their lives. Now, this issue affects all people, all genders, races, economic backgrounds, and it does not discriminate. Yes, we are talking about the one and only procrastination. Now, this problem is a tough one to fight, and to some of us, it's just second nature because we tend to regularly put tasks aside so we don't have to focus on it right now. We usually think that it feels so much better when we don't have to stress about that one assignment or one essay that our teachers continue to tell us about, and we usually leave it until the last night to finish it, or maybe the morning that it's due. Or some of us would try to get a head start on these assignments or whatever we need to do, only to find ourselves backing away from it and leaving it alone until we're pressured to finish right before the due date. Either way, procrastination continues to be a constant struggle and perhaps an ongoing cycle that seems impossible to handle. But today we're going to knock down procrastination once and for all, and I'm going to help y'all crush this problem. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can gain weekly information that feeds your mind and it just helps you begin your week on a high note. A person once said that Mondays are for the brave, the strong, and the courageous because it's always going to be that first day of every week when you get to choose to get out there and show up. End quote. And if you're tuning in for this week's episode, you're already off to a great start. So let's talk about procrastination. Okay, now let's set the tone for what procrastination really is and where it comes from. When dealing with any problem, we need to identify the roots and know where it's coming from in order to really fight that problem and win. Okay, so first, here's what you need to know about procrastination. Procrastination is described as the act of unnecessarily postponing decisions or actions. Now, here's a little history. Procrastination is derived from the Latin verb procrastinare, which means to put off until tomorrow. But it's more than just voluntarily delaying something. Procrastination is also derived from the ancient Greek word, akrasia, which means doing something against our better judgment. It's self-harm, said Dr. Pierce Steele, a professor of motivational psychology at the University of Calgary. So let me just tell you this. If you struggle with procrastination, know that you are definitely not alone. Procrastination is a widespread phenomenon, and American Psychological Association actually says that 20%, that's one fifth of the adult population, and 50% of the student population say that they procrastinate in a serious and chronic manner. So that doesn't even include like procrastinating just from time to time. This is serious. And furthermore, people who aren't chronic procrastinators still struggle from procrastination from time to time and suffer from it from various degrees in their everyday life. And in addition, as you've likely noticed, procrastination is a very serious problem and it can lead to a wide variety of issues. And it's not surprising that procrastination is associated with the worst grades in school, maybe lower salaries in the workplace, a higher chance of being unemployed, more stress, higher rates of mental health issues, as well as higher rates of physical health problems. But here's the thing, and this is what I want you all to get from this. If there's anything I want y'all to get from this episode, it's this fact. Procrastination has nothing to do with being lazy. People often assume that they procrastinate because of a result of laziness or a lack of willpower, but the real answer is much more complex than that. You know, a 2019 New York Times article gave the world a different view of procrastination and why we feel so bad after doing it and why it's so hard to break that cycle. Dr. Fusha, which is a professor of psychology who was part of the New York Times study, she claims that people engage in this irrational cycle of procrastination because of the inability to manage negative moods around a task. This is why we say that procrastination is just irrational. It doesn't make sense to do something that you know will have negative consequences on your mental health, your physical health, your body. But it's that small relief that we feel when procrastinating that makes the cycle worse. In the present, putting off a task provides relief, a sense of comfort, because it's like you've been rewarded for procrastinating. And we all know that when we're rewarded for something, we tend to do it again until it's imprinted in our conscious mind. This is exactly why procrastination isn't a one time behavior, but a cycle that easily becomes a chronic habit. You know, when we procrastinate, we feel so good because we're like, and we can just do it later, and then we feel a fake sense of security, and that's what makes us want to repeat this procrastination cycle over and over and over again because it feels so good in the present time. And also, do not confuse procrastination with relaxation either. Relaxing actually recharges you with energy. In contrast, procrastination drains it from you. The less energy that you have, the more stressed out or even depressed you might become, and the higher the chances of you putting off your responsibilities are. So, the opposite of procrastination is actually getting things done and being able to relax, dealing with your workload, and be happy in the long term. So basically, in short, humans procrastinate because factors such as anxiety or fear of failure outweigh your motivation and self control. And they aren't able to regulate those emotions, so they just decide to put it off for the meantime. So, just so you know, procrastination is not a character flaw or a mysterious curse on your ability to manage time. I know a lot of us have been taught that, but that's not the case. And it's actually a way of coping with negative emotions and moods because of certain tasks that we need to complete. And these moods that come up include boredom, maybe anxiety, insecurity, frustration, resentment, self doubt, and beyond. Now, Dr. Tim Cycle said that procrastination is an emotion regulation problem, not a time management problem. Procrastination is about being more focused on the immediate urgency of managing negative moods than actually getting on with the task. So here's how procrastination works. When we need to perform a certain task, like maybe completing that essay or getting an oil change for a car, we usually rely on our self control in order to get ourselves to do so. Then our motivation, which is based on the desire for some reward that we'll receive as a result of completing that task, provides a helpful boost to our self control. So that actually helps us act in a timely manner. Maybe the motivation in this essay example is that we'll get a good grade when we complete our essay, so we want to complete it as fast as possible. But there are various demotivating factors such as anxiety or fear of failure that will have an opposite effect than our motivation, meaning that they can actually make us more likely to postpone our tasks when it is not necessary, instead of getting them done in a timely manner that we wanted to do in the beginning. In addition, there are also various hindering factors like mental exhaustion or distracting environments that interfere with our self control and motivation directly in a way that also makes us more likely to procrastinate on that essay. Maybe it's that phone that's 2 feet within you and that causes that distraction. Or perhaps you're in a loud environment that prevents you from settling down in that total concentration mood. So you just start to feel really irritable. You don't want to work on the essay anymore. Maybe it's because of that. But whenever these demotivating and hindering factors outweigh our self control and motivation, we end up procrastinating. So that's how it works. And then we have to weigh into the balance between some shifts back in our favor before we start getting on our work, which can sometimes take a very long time. So, Savannah, you're saying that we procrastinate to feel better, but in the end, we feel so much worse. Why is that? Oh, audience, what a great question. So, psychological Hal Hirschfield actually says that we weren't designed to think ahead into the future because we needed to focus on providing for ourselves in the here and now. Now, Dr. Howe's research shows that we perceive our future selves more like strangers than actually a part of ourselves. And when we procrastinate, our brains actually think that the tasks and the activities that we're putting off and the negative feelings that we are feeling at in the present moment are await us on the other side and are someone else's problem instead of ours because we don't associate our future selves with our present selves. So basically, we play the blame game, trying to force our problems on someone else's plate, but this hurts us in the end because that someone else is actually our future self. But the cool thing is, you can successfully overcome your procrastination by implementing techniques that allow you to deal with the issues that cause you to procrastinate in the first place. Many people waste valuable time thinking about tomorrow while living in today. Maybe for some of us, we can't wait until tomorrow because today carries issues that we would rather not deal with. And then we tend to fool ourselves into thinking that another day will produce the solutions to our problems, so long as we avoid the problem for as long as possible. So then we say, "Oh, I can just do it tomorrow. I can just do it the next day." And then tomorrow becomes an indefinite amount of time in the future that never seems to come fast enough, and it just never comes at all. The more we wait to do tomorrow what we should have done today, the less we'll accomplish in the long run. But here's the thing. Whenever we say, "Oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll procrastinate on it and I'll just wait until tomorrow to do it." That tomorrow turns into today. Every day that we wake up, we are greeted with a day that we've never seen before and one that we will never see again. This fact alone should propel us to do all we can do in this one day, the one that we have right before us. Because guess what? Tomorrow may never come. But today summons us to nullify that wishful thinking and that is based in the hope so's, the maybes, the ifs, the "oh, I can do it tomorrow," and to void out these negative thoughts. This day is the only moment that we have to realize our potential and to turn our dreams into reality. What we hope to do at some indefinite time in the future, like tomorrow, can just as well be done today. Passes way too fast, and all the tomorrows that we hope for, they will all have come and go. So don't waste time thinking about a day that you have no control over. Don't waste time thinking about, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow, or I'll just do it a week later. All we have is right now, and right now is precious. So this moment, this minute, this very second of life is all the future we can really handle all at once. We are responsible for making the right decisions to do what we hope for today. Because every day that comes in is a new day full of golden opportunities waiting for us to embrace them. And also, we never know what we're missing out whenever we procrastinate and push it off for tomorrow. Okay, so how in the world do we get to the root cause of procrastination? Okay, so first of all, we have to realize that at its core, procrastination is about emotions, not lack of productivity. The solution doesn't involve downloading a new time management app or learning new strategies for self control. It has to do with managing our emotions in a new way. A neuroscience doctor Judson Brewer said that if we have a habit loop around procrastination, but we haven't found a better reward, our brain is just going to do it over and over and over again until we give it something better to do. End quote. And you realize that this is the same theme we talked about in our habits episode. Because it's so hard to break a habit, you can't just break a habit, you have to replace it with a new one with a better reward system. And it's so true because you know that bit of relief that we feel when procrastinating, where it's like, oh, I don't have to deal with it right now. That's the reward that we're getting. But it ends up to hurting us later on. But we don't think about later on. We just think about what's in the present moment right now. So the key is to find a better reward than that avoidance, one that can relieve our feelings in the present without causing harm to our future. Next, we gotta set our goals. Now, when you do this, it's crucial to make sure that your goals are as clear as possible, since you are more likely to procrastinate when it comes to goals that are super vague compared to goals that are very defined. For example, be more healthy is a vague goal, and you're more likely to procrastinate on it when it comes to pursuing it than rather than if you're pursuing a more concrete goal, such as drink more water or avoid eating fast food for the next month. Similarly, a goal such as start exercising is relatively vague and is therefore more likely to lead to procrastination than a goal that's more concrete, like go to the gym 3 times a week and work out for at least 30 minutes each time. Also, when you're setting your goals, you want to make sure that your goals are achievable and meaningful. So, achievable means that your goals should be realistic enough that you can actually accomplish them. And meaningful means that your goals should be substantial and important enough so that they can lead you to make notable progress. For example, we're writing a thesis, we're in college, we're writing our thesis paper. The goal of writing 5,000 words for your thesis each day is meaningful, but it's not really achievable since most people can't really write at that rate, which is why such a goal should be avoided because it can quickly lead to burnout. On the other hand, the goal of writing 5 words every day is definitely achievable, but it's not meaningful since it'll take you way too long to finish your thesis and at that rate, so that's why that type of goal should be avoided. But the goal of writing 500 words is both achievable and meaningful, which is why it represents a good goal to set for yourself. Now, of course, different people might choose different rates of progress, and since there isn't a single rate of progress that works for everyone, so don't stick to a goal that might work for your friend, it might not work for you. So the important thing is that you have to find the rate of progress that works for you in that particular situation because different situations calls for different things. So overall, the first step for to overcoming your procrastination is to set your goals. Now, these goals should be clear, achievable, and meaningful. So that means that they should be well defined, possible to accomplish, and important enough to help you make notable progress where you can look back and say, "Yeah, I've accomplished something." Then you want to identify the problem. If you want to successfully solve your procrastination problem, it's important to first understand the exact nature of the problem that you're dealing with. So, there are three main factors that you need to think about when dealing with procrastination. The first one is when you procrastinate. So, in what situations do you actually procrastinate? Do you procrastinate when you're working from home compared to when you're working in the library? Do you struggle to finish tasks after you've started them, or do you struggle to get started in the first place? Questions like that you should always ask yourself to really see where you're at. And then two, how you procrastinate. So, what do you do when you're procrastinating? For example, do you browse social media, play video games, watch TV shows, do you go out with friends, or do you find those small, unimportant tasks to complete? So, what do you do? And three, why do you procrastinate? So, what's causing you to procrastinate? For example, do you find yourself being constantly distracted, or do you feel so overwhelmed that you don't know how to get started and you just leave it off so you don't have to deal with it right now? Here's an example. Each time that you get a new assignment, you sit in front of your computer in the room. So that's the first part, that's the when. But instead of working on the assignment, you find yourself wasting time on the internet. That's the how. Because the assignment is so boring that you cannot find the motivation to start until shortly before it's due. That's the why. So this step is extremely important because you by taking the time to clearly identify the nature of your procrastination problem, you can then figure out the best way to deal with it instead of just hoping that things will be different in the future. This is a more concrete way of going about it. So when I was dealing with my procrastination problem, I laid it all out and I was able to pinpoint exactly when I was procrastinating and why I was taking those measures to do so. And then the fourth step is to create a plan of action based off the specific problem that you're facing with procrastination. So here I'll be providing a list of techniques that I use to help with my procrastination. But remember that creating a static plan that only works for one situation will not work in every single situation when you're faced with procrastination. So make sure you have a flexible plan that you're working with. And make sure that you also identify the nature of your procrastination problem before figuring out which techniques you want to use for my list. And also, as you go along, see which technique works for you and then eliminate those that don't while experimenting new techniques because, this is a trial and error. But we need to do this if we really want to kick procrastination in the butt. We have to do this. So here are a couple of things that you always need to do though. So one, you need to make it easier for you to get started. Okay, so we're back to our essay example. We're sitting in front of our computer, but we can never figure out how to start. Maybe you should leave the document on. That maybe you should leave the document that you need to work on open on your computer before you go to sleep, and it'll make it easier for you to start working on it once you sit down at your computer the next day. Because when you wake up, you go to your computer, you're like, oh, I have to do this again, and it just shows you that it's already all set up for you, and it shows you I need to work on this right now. And then also, too, you need to make it easier for you to keep going once you've started. Now, this is the very important part. And this is the part I often messed up at because it's very hard for me to keep going and have that momentum. But for example, we're back to our essay example, and maybe you want to put off your phone or put it on silent mode, or maybe even put it out of sight or give it to a trusted friend or family member that will say, okay, I'll give you your phone back after you've written 2 paragraphs. And that just really helps you because you have another partner that will hold you accountable to that. And also it gives you a better reward saying that, oh, once I finish my 2 paragraphs, I will get my phone back. So it's a great 2-in-1. And then also, the third thing you have to do is make it harder for you to avoid working. For example, turning off the Wi-Fi on your phone maybe removes the temptation to procrastinate on social media instead of writing your paper. Now, here is a list of techniques that I use whenever I catch myself procrastinating. I think I have like 5 or 6, and I'm gonna go through all of them, and we're just gonna make sure we kick procrastination in the butt once and for all. And also, this is the perfect episode because I know school has started for a lot of people. I'm starting school personally in a week, and I know that this episode will be really helpful for all the students out there that are getting off summer mode. It's really hard to get back in the flow of things. So hopefully these will help. Okay, let's get into it. So the first technique that I have is break large tasks into smaller ones. So breaking these large, big tasks into smaller tasks can help us to take action by making those different activities feel less overwhelming, and also allowing us to continue streaming and continue having that reward progress. Like I said, I think I mentioned it in the other episodes earlier. You need to celebrate the small successes. But if you have this one huge essay to do, then you won't be able to celebrate any small accomplishments because you haven't set small goals for yourself. So maybe set like, oh, today I'm going to, by the 16th of March, I'm going to finish my thesis. Maybe by the 22nd, I'm going to finish my introduction paragraph, and break it down into smaller ones, because it helps you identify what exactly you need to do in order to achieve your goals at such a high level of detail. So, like, for example, when we're writing a paper for class, we break it down into maybe an ordered list of subtasks and subtopics that we need to perform. And it can be like, decide a topic. Like, we decide a topic by the 8th of March. Then we collect a list of sources by maybe the 10th. Then by the 16th, we should be done with our thesis. Simple things like that. And it also holds us accountable to those dates. But when using this technique, here are a few things you want to keep in mind. So you can break tasks apart as much as you need. A good rule of thumb is to create subtasks that are no more than a single session to complete, meaning that you can complete these mini activities before you need to take a break. You can just complete it all in one go. Also, if it helps, start with a small first step. Some people find that it helps to start with a small first step, because once you complete that small first step and you get into the activity, it just makes it easier to continue going. Also, I want everyone to know you do not need to outline your entire project from the start. If you're dealing with a big project, you do not need to start by outlining all its upcoming steps, and doing so can actually be counterproductive. Instead, start by figuring out only the next few steps that you can handle, and then add on new ones later on once you've made sufficient progress. So that was the first technique. The second technique is to prioritize your tasks. Prioritizing your tasks can help you figure out which tasks you need to work on and when you need to work on them. It also shows you that you don't end up procrastinating and wasting time on the little tasks while neglecting the important ones. And it'll also help you avoid situations where you feel overwhelmed because you're just not sure where to start or which task you should be working on. So there's two common methods for prioritizing your tasks, and the first one is what I use personally, and it's the Ivy Lee method. So this method involves preparing your to-do list at the end of each day for the next day, and writing down a list of 6 tasks that you want to complete tomorrow, ranked in order of importance. And then the second one is called the Eisenhower Matrix. And this method includes categorizing each task that you have based on whether it's important or unimportant, and also based on whether it's urgent or non-urgent, and then prioritizing your tasks based on those two criteria. Overall, there's so many different methods that are out there that you can use, but don't waste time on trying to pick your prioritization method or get stuck figuring out which one is best. If you are unsure about which one to try first, I advise that you try the Ivy League method because it's more simpler. That's what I use, so I advise you try that one first. Also, you need to make sure now the third technique that I have is to identify your productivity cycles. Different people have different cycles of productivity, which means that different people are productive during different times of the day. For example, some people might work better in the morning, others might be more productive at night. Personally, I'm a night owl and I usually record all my podcasts at night. I do everything at night because that's what I feel more comfortable with. And also, some people might be more productive after they eat. Some people might be productive when they're hungry. It just all depends on you. But what you need to do in order to procrastinate less is to identify your peak times, which are the times that you are most productive, and then plan your entire schedule so that most of your work is scheduled for those time periods. You should also make sure you identify your slump times, which are times of the days you feel the least productive, and then plan your schedule so that your breaks or your most simple tasks are scheduled for those time periods. Also, make sure that you might be able to handle different types of tasks during different times of the days. Like maybe you might be able to handle creative tasks when it's early in the day and small tasks when it's relatively late. But it really all depends on you. Now, the fourth technique that I have is trying to reach a state of flow. Now, we have often talked about how procrastination has nothing to do with you being lazy. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with regulating your emotions properly. And this is where this technique really comes into play. Now, a flow state is a mental state where you are completely immersed in the activity that you're engaged in. Basically, that's that state of being in the zone, and it's the best state of mind in terms of productivity since it allows you to focus on your work and actually enjoy it, which reduces the likelihood of your procrastinating. Because if you actually enjoy your task, you wouldn't want to be putting it off later on. But because we don't enjoy, because we're not looking forward to what we want to do, it it leads us to procrastinating more. So, to help yourself get into this state, try to create the right conditions, maybe working during the times where you're naturally productive and removing all those distractions from your environment. Since being in the state is highly beneficial, it's very hard to get there. And if you do find yourself in that flow state, do not stop working unless you absolutely have to. Because you can accomplish more in a few hours of flow than in weeks of procrastination, which is why this mental state should be appreciated as much as possible. Also, it's just a matter of fact of regulating your emotions. Sometimes you need a little break. But also, we have to make sure that break doesn't turn into a week, a month of procrastinating. So it's really just finding that balance. Now, I think this is the fifth technique that I have. The fifth technique is setting deadlines for yourself. Okay, so setting deadlines for yourself can reduce the likelihood that you will procrastinate since deadlines serve as a commitment device, which helps you plan ahead and motivate yourself. So, when you're setting deadlines for yourself, this really helps. This really is with the first technique, which is breaking your big tasks into smaller tasks. Make sure that your deadlines should be concrete. So, as we saw earlier, you are more likely to follow through on commitments that are defined than you are to follow through on commitments that are vague. For example, if you say Thursday at 4 p.m., I have to get this done, that is way better than sometime tomorrow. It should also be realistic. You should choose deadlines that give you as much time as you need to complete a task, but no more than that. Deadlines that don't give you enough time to get your work done can cause you to feel stressed and give up entirely, while deadlines that give you more time can also encourage you to delay unnecessarily until it's due. And I had a major problem with that, and I didn't really realize until I sat down to acknowledge what I was doing, because I would usually set really ambitious deadlines. Like I'd have to do this in like 2 days when really it'd take me a week to finish. But I was so ambitious with all my plans, I didn't know it was hurting me in the long run. So this is where I slipped up. Also, make sure that deadlines are meaningful. They are only beneficial if you actually go through with it. So your deadline should be set up in a way that encourages you to follow through. This is also a place where I messed up, because oftentimes I would set these really short deadlines, and then once I didn't finish it, it just didn't feel like it was important anymore. And I just be setting these deadlines with no intention of following through, because for some reason I knew I wasn't able to do it, but I didn't know why I wasn't able to do it until I sat down and I comprehended why I was procrastinating on tasks, even though I was setting deadlines for myself. So make sure that they're meaningful and make sure that they are realistic. And then I think the sixth technique is to make your temptations more inconvenient. It's still easier to change our circumstances than ourselves, said Gretchen Rubin. So we can take what we know about procrastination and use it to our advantage by placing obstacles between ourselves and our temptation. It makes us frustrated with procrastination, allowing us to avoid procrastinating more often. For example, let's say you regularly check social media. Maybe you gotta go the extra mile and delete the apps from your phone, or give yourself a really complicated password. I'm talking about like 20 characters. Maybe have your friend be in charge of the phone to keep you accountable. And by doing this, you're adding friction to the procrastination cycle and also making the reward value of your temptation less immediate. And then the final technique that I have for this video is to reward yourself for your accomplishments. People often procrastinate because important tasks that are rewarding to them in the long term are less appealing than behaviors that feel more rewarding in the short term. But you can avoid this way of thinking if you continue to reward yourself during a long term task. For example, you can decide to take a short break and watch some TV for every chapter that you read in preparation for a test. Or maybe you can eat a small piece of dark chocolate as a reward for every task that you complete while working on a project. Also, you can make your accomplishments more rewarding by doing simple things like writing down every task that you complete throughout the day and then going over them at night to see how much you got done, because that's really important. The fact that we should always take time to self reflect on our day, all the things that we accomplished, because it shows that, yeah, we were productive today, and it helps us to keep going. Sometimes we don't take that time to stop and to slow down and to really comprehend what we've done. And that can be a problem because we just go into the next day without encouraging ourselves. So we should always make sure we do that. And then also note that you can reward yourself either for getting started on a task, for completing it, or just for working on it in general. So it should be given so these rewards should be given for behaviors that are meaningful enough that they allow you to make progress on that task that you were stuck on forever. So those are all my techniques. Keep in mind that if it all feels like too much at first, remember that an imperfect action is infinitely better than no action at all. And you can always improve your actions that you're going to do. Also, if you feel too overwhelmed by all the techniques that I have given you guys, or you don't know where to start, just start with the one technique that you want to work on for now. And if you are not sure about which one to start with, I would personally start with breaking large tasks into smaller ones. And then once you feel more comfortable with doing that, you can choose to implement more techniques if you'd like and if that would work better. It's quote of the day time. So this week's quote says, procrastination is the grave in which opportunity is buried. End quote. So this quote comes from an unknown person, but it really shows that when we procrastinate on the different tasks, the different activities that we gotta complete, we miss the opportunity to rise to our true potential. The tomorrow that you're looking for, it's already here. So don't let it pass you by. Don't let the knowledge of what might or what could happen scare you from living to life today. Don't continue to put your tasks off tomorrow. Oh, I can do it tomorrow. Because as good as you are today will be as good as you will be tomorrow. So what you do today affects your tomorrow. What you plan today will be what you act upon tomorrow. The purpose that you hold in your heart today will follow you into tomorrow. So if you keep on saying, oh, I'm going to postpone my activities, I'll postpone this essay tomorrow, you're just going to keep on doing that until it becomes an indefinite time, and then you're really forced to crack down on it. Time is of the essence, so we don't want to wait. You don't want to wait any longer to fulfill your dreams, to accomplish your goals, and to live that life that you've always wanted. Let your tomorrow start today. I truly believe that when we really put our mind to it, we can truly crack down on procrastination. I was a procrastinator. I was a true procrastinator. I chronically procrastinated on every single little thing. But after learning the true essence of why we procrastinate and how it has to do with regulating our emotions, now I focus on my emotions. I focus on regulating them so it doesn't block me for what I could have done today. Because if I let that chance and if I let that opportunity go by me, who knows what I could have accomplished today, but what I didn't because of procrastination. So I hope y'all took a thing or two from this episode. I hope that these techniques are useful and that you will use them, especially since a lot of students are starting school and since you guys are going to work. And please let me know if these techniques are helpful, if you want a part two, because I have even more techniques that I can share with y'all today. Thanks again for tuning in to episode 14 of Mental Mondays with Savanna, and I'll see y'all next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You just listened to Mental Mondays with Savanna. Make sure you click the subscribe button to receive more positivity every Monday and join the fam. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.